We're here, we're practicing on it. Everyone has their preferences. There's things are better, but we're looking for how it is.
CBS Sports. Can you talk about just the game planning you already started last week, the opening script, how that communication flow has been with Brock, what he's liking, and how that continues into this week?
Yeah, we put in a lot last week. Today was really the official time. We make it official. I mean, we correct some things from last week, some things we didn't like, we took out. A few things we didn't have in last week that we had more time to look at, we put in. And now we'll run it back. Today was Wednesday, we'll do 2 more days of it. And we work on the openers Friday night, Saturday morning, and one solid Saturday night.
Hey, Kyle. You were around the 49ers organization when you were a young man, a young boy. How much did you absorb of the mentality of those players, of the Super Bowl or bust mentality that was always with that team during that the dynastic years?
I don't know. I mean, I'd like to say it was from hanging around the team, but it probably wasn't. Just a small boy who got that in training camp for a little bit, but just being around my dad my whole life definitely helps you understand the urgency of everything. I've gone to 3 Super Bowls before 6th grade. We were in the AFC and he was a coordinator. I think the closest one of those they lost by, let's say, 19 or 17. Versus the Giants. 5 to 10 versus Niners in the last one. So I kind of got used to that growing up, just being over in the AFC. And then I went to the Niners and won it. And it was so cool going back to Denver. And then winning it that my senior year in high school for Green Bay. I think the first time in 13 years that the AFC had won. So just going through that and knowing how your dad is before him, after him, all that stuff, you get the, even though you don't realize you're learning it, but those are life experiences. You have a very good idea of how it works. And I've been fortunate enough to be able to do this in my home. And not much different from how they were when I remember growing up.
Hello, Coach. Here from Touchdown Lecture. Before the season, there was a question about how injury could affect your team. And finally, you will arrive at the Super Bowl with a very healthy team. Did you change anything in the physical preparation this year compared to previous years?
You said with injuries? We always tweak stuff. I mean, we've got a group of guys who they look into the science and everything as well as anyone. I don't think there was anything drastic this year. We've been doing that pretty consistent for the last 5 years. But it's a week-to-week thing. It depends how your players feel after a Sunday game. It's what they tell me on Monday. It's what they tell me Wednesday before practice. Not every player is in the same situation, too, so you adjust it for individuals, but not too much different.
I know teams run more convincing versus the 49ers. At what point in your career did you start to realize the game you were playing was in between the numbers, and maybe even in between the hashes? And can you recall a play that made you feel like you had the games going through?
I just remember when I started and went to Tampa Bay as quality control, and I was drawing everything in books and stuff, and everything was drawn out from wide splits, nothing was from tight splits. And I always looked at everything when I first started through a receiver standpoint, just because that's what I played most of my life growing up. And it's so cool to watch how help people get open. How it looked one way out here, it looked totally different in here. Some people wouldn't even bump you back then. It was like they only could bump outside their numbers. You could bump off every time. You could get leverage with people, change stuff up. And I think it started that way, just from seeing how you could help people get open. And then you start to learn the run game. You start to learn how safeties fit, how leverage is different, and things like that. And it just evolves to a lot more.
Kyle, what are some of the challenges play calling head coaches face in game management, and how have you evolved in handling both since you became head coach?
I think since I became a head coach, I think offensive coaches are always thinking about the time and stuff. I mean, play callers, just being a coordinator, being able to call plays for the 9 years before becoming a head coach, I think gave me a lot of experience. You never call a play without having an idea of what's on the clock, the down and distance, the score, all that stuff. So it's always in your mind every time you watch football, every time you do anything. And I do think that once becoming a head coach, it's you from game management and stuff. I mean, always the clock issues are usually the same, but how to win the game becomes a little bit different. I think when you're calling plays and paying that attention as a coordinator, it's more about how do you score, how do you get points, how do you outscore the other team, because you don't watch the other team's offense, you don't have a good feel of your defense, you're not watching the game as it goes, you're just getting really serious. head coach, you realize how to call plays, how to use the time and stuff, not just to get points, but really just to try to help your game.
Throughout the regular season, you're over his body over. Do you ever get nervous when he makes the decision? Do you ever tell him to stop?
Yeah, when he makes a bad decision, doing that I do. If he did that a bunch, then it'd be something that we had to put a stop to. Usually when Brock goes across his body, I think he usually makes the right play. Quarterbacks do make that here and there. But if that's something you're just doing a bunch and making mistakes, you got to move very fast. You got to have a reason to go back. You know, just getting lucky.
Hey, Kyle. You and several of the players have suffered through heartbreaking losses, like we've talked about over the years. How do you think those calluses that were developed helped in the last couple games with you making those second half comebacks?
Not much at all. I mean, had a lot of comebacks before those calluses too. I think just the more you coach football, the more you go through, the more you don't try to make any absolute answers or philosophies in anything. You understand there's so many variables, there's so many different situations, and it comes down to one game. So you don't just sit there and be like, man, I learned this last game, I'm not going to do that the next game. That might be the right answer the next game. It might be the right answer the next quarter. I mean, everything you got to take into account. This isn't just a plus or minus game. You have to evaluate everything, and there's a flow with how those 22 people move in the situation. And that's stuff you got to. That's why you're never done. You're always continuing to work and continue to try to come up with whatever the decision is that gives you the best chance to win. But I promise you, there's no consistent bad answer.
Good afternoon, Coach. How do you manage your players' pressure, mainly those players who played 4 years ago against the Chiefs? Do you practice any special or execute any special dynamics with these players?
Guys who played in the Super Bowl last? No, we're just getting ready for this game. I don't think last Super Bowl has anything to do with this game. Just like last week. What's good about guys who've been here before, especially the younger guys who they can talk to the younger guys who are coming now and kind of tell them how they felt at that time and then how you feel after. I mean, it's a cool week. You get caught up in a lot of stuff, but you don't remember all this stuff. You remember the game. And people, for the rest of their life, should remember that game if you want that. And that's really all that matters. You can say that, but it's cool when people have gone through that. So, I mean, it's going to listen. That is the truth. That's how it goes. And all this stuff's going on and deep. You forget all this stuff. All passes, which you remember something else.
Hi, Kyle. Only two head coaches for this great franchise have had more wins than you in the Super Bowl era. You've had what many would consider great success in recent years with 4 NFC Championship game appearances in the last half decade. You have your own coaching tree. Do you think about your legacy to the NFL, and in particular this organization, and if you haven't, what would you like that legacy to be?
Sorry, I couldn't find it. I never thought about the word legacy. When I think of legacy, I think of my dad. I still, it doesn't look like that based on before, but I still feel like I'm still young. And it just doesn't really work that way with me. I don't think that works that way with a lot of people. You're just trying to win that game. That game is always the next one. Finally, we're in a game where this is the last one. These are the ones that count. So, yeah, you understand that, you're aware of that, but that's stuff that you don't really have time to spend thinking about. It's nice, hopefully, when the game's over, you can sit back and think about that stuff and enjoy it, and that's what you usually do at the end. Think about a lot of stuff and go through that. That's why we all need to get away a little bit usually when the season ends. That's why I'm very glad I don't have to go on a recruiting trail or anything like that. And whether it's good or bad, either way, you got to take about a month to do that. And when you come back, you get ready for the next year. And it's all said and done. I guess people talk about legacy.
Coach, I'd back off what you were saying about obviously the players, talk to the players who played in the game in 2019, but obviously the Super Bowl's an event. We're having 2 weeks between it. When you're winning, going out against the team, would you rather have the game be 1 week after the championship games, or do you like the 2 weeks?
No, I couldn't imagine it being 1 week. I mean, just the pressure that's on everybody once you win that NFC championship, everyone, you don't realize how many family members you have, so you have to count up Super Bowl tickets. And then, you never realize that you had as many people like you until that Monday when you have 500 texts saying they've never been to a Super Bowl and can you hook them up, and then you realize that there's only so many people in that stadium and how hard it is. So like that's the most stressful thing to me is watching players go through that who have no idea. You have to say no to your uncle who is always with you. Well, they don't know how much that costs and they don't know how much it gets. And I think they care of it. But when you can't get that down before you come here, and now you're here and now you kind of have a normal week besides all the meeting stuff.
Coach, George Gill, Eric Armstead, they went back in practice this week after missing last week.
What's that again?
George Kittle and Eric Armstead, they went back in normal practice routine.
Yeah, they were limited today. George and Eric were limited. They got out there, got some good work in, and hopefully they'll be full go tomorrow.
A lot of your players have talked about how they approached mentally the 2019 Super Bowl and how it's different for them this year. Do you have the same experience? Do you feel like your emotional state this year is much different than 2019?
I don't think it's that much different. I mean, the beginning of the week is always fun and stuff to get out here and everything, but I mean, I've always been pretty well aware before I got into coaching what the Super Bowl was. You're so locked in and ready for that moment. I've learned it going through it before, but I do think the players, the biggest thing is for them to realize, because I don't take as many pictures anymore. You don't film everything. Thinking this is so special and stuff because you've never seen stuff like that. And I think those are the things you start to realize, like, all that matters is that game. You're not going to come back and watch that stuff unless you win that game. And that's really, I think it gets clearer and clearer the more you do it. All right, thanks, guys.
Yeah.
We're going to start here in the back.
Hi, Brock. Melissa Jacobs from Good Game News Sports Newsletter. So I'm wondering how playing flag football until age 12 helped prepare you for tackle football, and if you think that your path is the way of the future.
Yeah, like you said, I played up until I was about 12, and I think it just helped just with the speed of the game. It was a quick game. I think hand-eye coordination, all that kind of stuff, really did develop for me. Throughout my years of playing flag football, obviously being able to juke and cut and move in certain ways, just the way the sport is, helped me for tackle football. I feel like when I started playing tackle football, I was a little slower actually because of just the pace of the game moving flags. So anytime I'm talking to family and friends, I always encourage kids growing up to start off with flag football and play. Really as long as they can to help develop those kind of skills.
Brock, do you feel like this week has been, or these last 2 weeks have been normal weeks as far as your preparation heading into this game? And what's been the biggest challenge for you to try to make it as normal as possible?
Yeah, I feel like last week, Kyle and obviously just the staff in general did a great job with treating it like it was a normal game week in terms of our installs and our routine and our schedule. So that all felt pretty normal. And the challenge is, you get through the week and you don't play on Sunday. So for us, it was, you put in all this, work of studying and preparation and obviously practicing, and then you're not playing on Sunday. So that was a little odd. But obviously this week, same thing, knocked out some media stuff early in the week, and then today it felt good to get back out there and get back in our routine.
Brock, can you just describe what the practice field is like? We've heard a lot about it this week. Just what are your impressions of it?
Yeah, today we didn't have as an aggressive practice just in terms of the hard running and cutting and stuff. That's tomorrow. So
But today I feel like it was pretty good just in terms of us getting out there and sort of moving around, light running and whatnot. So that was that. So we'll see what it is.
Your first passes were against the Chiefs in the blowout loss last season. Jed York said you threw a ball in the stands. I don't recall that happening. You did throw a ball, but what are your memories of that game, and what were your emotions? Like, here I am.
Yeah, obviously the score and the game was sort of out of reach, and I went in at the end and was trying to get some reps, and I'm not gonna lie, it was going pretty fast. Just my first NFL action, and I'm dropping back, and for me, I was like, I don't know if Chris Jones is in, but I was like, man, Chris Jones is there, Frank Clark on the edge. So for me, my mind was racing pretty fast, and I was trying to get through reads pretty quickly, and definitely did feel rushed. I'm not gonna lie, I did. But there were some plays where I was able to make some throws and get into a rhythm, and then obviously at the end I sailed one over to Juwan's head for an interception. But just where the game was at was a little weird. I was out of reach, and then I was just trying to go in and get my first action and get into a rhythm. So yeah, it is what it is. But obviously I learned from it. I feel like when week 13 came around, that game and those reps actually did help me prepare for the opportunity.
You're facing a defensive coordinator in Steve Spagnuolo, renowned for throwing a lot at opposing quarterbacks, but your defense has successful in terms of disguising coverages, particularly on that fourth down against Detroit. I'm just wondering how facing them helps you prepare for the challenge you got on Sunday.
Yeah, obviously I think they do a great job with being sound in what they do, and then also bringing some pressure at times. Sort of getting the quarterback off schedule and just different looks that they sprinkle in. So, but yeah, going back to like camp, we've seen a lot of different pressure looks and stuff from our defense, and we've had some good looks. Obviously going against Fred and Dre and those guys. So that's sort of good for us to sit back and have that kind of experience. But at the same time, Spags does a good job, I think, with calling plays and pressures when you least expect it, and try to get the offense caught off guard. So that's the challenge, honestly. So it's going to come down to the key of the battle, being able to be ready for it and make the right decisions when it comes.
You've been very vocal about your faith and identity in Christ. What is a verse or a passage in the Bible you hold on to facing adversity in the NFL?
I've said it a lot, in the press conferences, but Psalm 23. Even when I go through the darkest valley, I fear no danger, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. And then it also talks about how God prepares a table before me, even in the presence of my enemies. So even though all the craziness is going on for me, I'm like, all right, God's with me right here in this moment, and it gives me peace, it gives me, just the calmness, the steadfastness. And, in those moments, that's what I can see back to. Yes.
From the very beginning, the locker room, your teammates have been very supportive of you, their confidence, their belief in you, based on what they had seen from you in practice. At what point in your starting career did you feel like you had earned all that trust and faith based on what you did in the games?
Last year, when I stepped in, we were on a roll as a team. Just obviously, we had the Super Bowl on our minds and in our sights. So, for me, really, it was like, all right, we're rolling. I'm just continuing to do what Jimmy had done before, and didn't want to, lose a step or take a step back as an offense. So, for me, I didn't really know or understand until probably this year. We went on a roll. We were 5-0, and then honestly, when we went on a streak of losing some games, that's I feel like when you start questioning and seeing how guys respond to you. And my team had my back. Even through those 3 games that we lost in a row, we had guys on defense: Drake Greenlaw, Fred, Eric Armstead, like all those guys continue to come up to me and say, "Dude, we got your back. This is the NFL. It's not easy." So it was in those moments that I knew, all right, these guys got my back.
Hey, Brock, after your injury in the NFC Championship last year, looking at the improvements that you made coming into this season, where in your game do you think that you made the biggest strides?
Yeah, I think last year when I first got in, there was times where I feel like I really wasn't, playing the position of quarterback like I needed to and wanted to. I feel like I was sort of quick to get out of the pocket at some points and rush out and not trust progressions and trust the boys up front. So I feel like this year I've done a little bit better of a job of staying within the pocket, going through some reads, taking some checkdowns, throwing the ball away when I need to. Obviously, there's been some times and moments where I've been too aggressive and had interceptions and stuff, but that happens. And so, but I think a big jump for me this year was just playing the position and not trying to be Superman every play when something's not there.
Brock, you mentioned you had a lot of meaningful conversations with the veterans of this team about navigating this Super Bowl experience. What's been the most helpful piece of advice you've gotten?
Yeah, not making it, what it's not. And I've heard a lot of guys say, it's a big moment, it's a big game, it could be the biggest game of your life kind of thing. But what it comes down to is it's 11 on 11. It's football at the end of the day. You can't get wrapped up in all the stuff outside, what's going on throughout the week. And we're here for a reason. What we've done all year has gotten us here, and so we can obviously have confidence in that. What we've done all year has been good enough, and we've got to continue to do that for definitely of the vets.
Brock, your teammates say that impersonations are among your many talents. I believe Sirens, we had SpongeBob the other night, maybe some teammates, coaches. When did you first realize you can do that, and how do you use that in the building?
Yeah, growing up, my dad was pretty good at impersonations, so I think I picked up from him. Just whether it was family, friends, teammates growing up, I feel like I've always done some impersonations. They've been pretty well, but I don't know, I'll do it sometimes when we're in the huddle or something, so just, show them that, all right, Brock's, just calm, just collected here, you joke around, so it's all good. So I feel like there's times and moments where I do it, but I don't go around trying to impersonate everybody all the time.
Hi, Brock, it's Contessa Brewer from CNBC. When you started, I guess in gambling terms, you would have been considered a long shot. Give me a sense of whether being underestimated is actually an advantage.
Yeah, I feel like it can be. I think earlier this year, there's not a lot of talk or buzz really about, I guess, myself, and not that I listen to it and buy into all of it, but it's almost like, all right, I still have to go and play with that chip on my shoulder and prove to my teammates that I can be the guy for this team. I feel like I had some stuff to prove still. Obviously, last year I played 7, 8 games or whatever that was, and it was all good, but it wasn't the whole season, so there was a lot of questions. And so for me, it was, all right, I still got to go out there and prove to myself, I can do this, and it's my team that I can be the guy. So, there wasn't a big, spotlight on me or anything like that. So, you sort of want to make a name for yourself, kind of thing, throughout the year and early on. So, I feel like it has been sort of an advantage.
What was the biggest difference between learning Iowa State's playbook and 49ers playbook? Was there any similarities in verbiage? Was there any crossover?
Yeah, I feel like, concepts and stuff, pretty similar, not going to lie, from what we ran at Iowa State to what we do now. Just the differences, just the way of college football compared to the NFL, being in a huddle, reciting plays, long plays, multiple plays, all in one, standing, telling my O-line, receivers, everybody what we're doing. There's just a lot more communication, just that aspect is more. In college, you're getting the signal from the sideline and everyone's looking, and then line up real quick and try to run the play. In the NFL, you're looking guys in the eyes and telling them, hey, this is the play and this is what we have to do. But as a quarterback, I like that just because you can see the play in your head better. You got to say it multiple times, and I feel like it's just a little bit more clear to me in my mind. So those are the differences, and it's not knocking college football or anything. It's just the differences in the way it is.
Villalba from Multimedios in Mexico. 2 questions. First, when you entered as a starting quarterback with the 49ers, there were so many offensive players, established players like Deebo Samuel, Christian McCaffrey, Josh Hill. How are you able to connect with them? And second, many people probably forgot the rehab that you had to go through during the off-season. How hard was it to regain the form that you had last year?
Yeah, so to answer your first part, I mean, I've been myself since I got here day one. You know, obviously I've come in and I didn't really say much. I just tried to learn the playbook and do my job and show, you know, the guys at practice that, hey, I can be a trustworthy guy when my number's called upon. You know, go in, make reads, and make plays. And I feel like over time, you know, Trent, Devo, Christian, George, I could sense that. They could feel it. It wasn't just all talk. And obviously, when I got thrown in week 13, it was like, all right, let's see what you got here. And never really did look back from there. So that's sort of just how that came to be. In terms of the rehab and stuff, you know, I feel like it's a long process. You get cleared. I got cleared around 5.5, 6 months. And I'm not gonna lie, like, you know, I was still continuing to strengthen my arm as the season started, and that was the whole thing that I was dealing with. But I was good enough to play, and felt good enough for game one, and the rest is sort of history. But you know, I think my arm had, like, you just do different mobilities and exercises and stuff because of your arm and rehab, and so your arm, by nature, I think, does get a little stronger. So those are things that I've learned and continue to do. You know,
Victor Roulier from Touchdown Like 2. Quick question. In a almost perfect season, you had one difficult game versus Baltimore versus a very aggressive defense. And now in the Super Bowl, you will face again a very aggressive defense with the Chiefs. What lesson did you learn from the matchup from Baltimore, and do you think you can apply what you learned during the Super Bowl versus the Chiefs?
Yeah, I mean, that Baltimore game, we had a couple explosive plays early on, and you know, for myself, I started, you know, just feeling good about what we were doing, and I sort of bought into the emotion of, all right, we had some big plays here, and I can go fit this throw in now, even though it wasn't even the right coverage for me to do that. And so, I learned the hard way through some interceptions, and I feel like I wasn't playing with a clear mind at that point. So that's something that I definitely learned, and obviously playing the Super Bowl, another big game. How can I understand that every play has a life of its own? I can't, just because you had a big play in the last play, it doesn't mean this next play is going to be another big play. Like, the right play might be checking me down or throwing it away. So those are things I had to learn, and definitely taking into account, you know, how aggressive and how good the Chiefs defense is.
Brock, you talked earlier about sometimes doing impressions in the huddle. George is always finding the camera. Especially on a week like this, how important is it to remember that, yes, it's the seriousness of the business of football, but also you're playing a game and you want to have fun doing it?
Yeah, I mean, there's a fine line of it for sure. Obviously studying and being prepared for every little situation and circumstance, and being ready to answer those questions right. But also, you know, being able to enjoy the game. We're in the Super Bowl. You dreamed of this as a kid growing up. You know, you want to play. Every kid dreamed of playing this game. And so, I mean, like, George obviously gives us a great perspective every game. He's always having fun, joking around. But when the ball's snapped, he's doing his job. He's doing it well. So there's a fine line of it. But I mean, at the end of the day, man, like, this is something that we all dreamed of growing up, and we got to be grateful for it now.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Coming down right now.
Yeah, leave it there, just so we don't lose it. Rare.